Good afternoon, Ambassador. How are you?
I'm good. Good afternoon, Nomita. I'm fine. And how are you?
I'm very good, sir. We remember the beautiful times we've had in Singapore with you.
Always.
Ambassador, this year, Indonesia holds the chairmanship of ASEAN.
Yes.
How do you think things are going to be different, and what would you call a successful year at the end of this term?
I think Indonesian chairmanship has already been very clear when we took over the chairmanship, and when we keep the chairmanship kick off officially, led by the President Joko Widodo here in Jakarta. So the theme is ASEAN Matters, Epicenter of Growth. What does it mean? It means that, of course, when we are talking about ASEAN Matters, we are talking about how ASEAN has been able to manage so far different challenges, including also COVID-19 pandemic and the impact of the geopolitical conflict in Europe. And if you look at the mechanism of ASEAN and how ASEAN trying to address collectively all of those challenges, we still see that ASEAN is continuing to grow this year. Even on average, it's about 4.7%. This is much higher than the global average growth. So in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were also one of the regions where I think level of vaccination has already been very high. At the beginning, of course, there are a lot of challenges, but I think we are doing much better than any other regions, as well as any other countries. So in this context, I think we would like to emphasize again that, look, ASEAN could be, we were labeled before as a beacon of democracy, beacon of peace, and beacon of hope as well. So that is the reason why when the geopolitical competition, meaning that we are facing a situation which is not yet settled up until now in terms of take for example the resilience of the global supply chains or diversification of the global supply chains. So ASEAN can also be the best options in order to strengthen the resilience of the global supply chains, because certainly we have all of the factors that can support that. We have people, population, we have stability. So it's only ASEAN who will be able to bring different world leaders in one meeting. And that is the strength of ASEAN. And that also emphasizes why ASEAN matters, and also why ASEAN will also be able to be the center of the gravity of the growth, not only in the region, but also globally.
Ambassador, you have been associated with ASEAN for many years in very important positions. From inside, do you see any changes, significant changes that have taken place over these years? And if yes, what are those changes?
A lot of changes happen in ASEAN, but of course, if you look at there was a little bit not really encouraging pictures. The survey undertaken by the ASEAN just recently out. Most of those surveys are politicians, government officials, business leaders, academicians, and so on and so forth. The result of the survey is saying that ASEAN is a little bit slow, ineffective. I think they are referring to some of the issues like Myanmar, or the fact the war broke out in Europe. So, of course, with this significant challenge, with the way people look at ASEAN, we see that ASEAN is becoming more and more responsive. But we should not also forget, we are not like EU. The financial resources, the funding is very much limited. Unlike the EU with billions of euro budget, still they cannot stop the war in Ukraine. Still they cannot stop the impact of this pandemic-19 and also the impacts of the war in Ukraine. So, and in the survey as well, we are talking about, I think 40% of those people surveyed, they are saying that geopolitical challenge is also another significant challenge that ASEAN is going to face, and ASEAN has to address that. I think if we compare this with what happened even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when we have the issue, when we have the challenge, we are not doing again the past practice like sweeping the dirt under the carpet. We are trying to expose that, and we are trying to bring it to the open and to address that. For example, like the geopolitical competitions, then finally the ASEAN leaders adopted what we know as the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. This is ASEAN response, not rejecting the American or Japanese concept of the Indo-Pacific, free and open Indo-Pacific. But we are trying to also contribute based on ASEAN capacity, based on ASEAN ability to contribute in maintaining conversation, in maintaining the dialogue. So then, when we keep on engaging each other in a conversation, we may agree to disagree, but I think this is good rather than mobilizing troops and forces to respond to the challenge that we are facing. So ASEAN has already been able to develop consensus, not only within ASEAN, but also including also other external partners of ASEAN. Another example that I would like us to bring out here is Indonesia's initiative back in 2011 on the economic front. We were the one who put the idea of the development of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. It took us more than 10 years to finalize the agreement, with the only exception, India is moving out, but certainly we told the Indian that the door is unlocked. They can just enter anytime they want. So this is unprecedented, because never in the history Japan entered into a free trade agreement with China, or Japan entered into a free trade agreement with Korea. So when we are talking about regional comprehensive economic partnership, where where China, Korea, and Japan was inside, and also New Zealand and Australia. So again, this is how responsive ASEAN is. We are quite responsive, but we also have to admit that we need to be more responsive than what we are now, so that we will be able to maintain peace and stability and attain whatever objective that ASEAN is trying to achieve.
Ambassador, we just discussed that there's a gap between what happens at the top and the ministers meet and everything, and people's understanding of what ASEAN stands for or whatever. So how do you think during Indonesia's presidency you can alter the course of understanding and let people feel that people of ASEAN feel that ASEAN is important? It's not only the leadership like yourself and the presidents and prime ministers. How will you change that?
Well, this is also what they say, that ASEAN was too elitist. Although I think in the ASEAN Charter it's already been very clear, people-centered, people-oriented ASEAN. They really bring this, notion to the people. But again, one example I would like to also highlight, like this institution, Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. So, although at the beginning, many member states are very cautious about what the role of this Institute for Peace and Reconciliation will do, in its activity. So it has already been now 10 years in its establishment. So we saw a lot of activities, awareness raising among the people in ASEAN. Take for example, like I was attending one of the workshop organized by UN together with ASEAN on youth and peace, for example. So how we were able to bring all of the younger generation from ASEAN member states to talk about why peace is important and how young generation can also contribute. And that is one thing. Take for example again on the issue of ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. So this commission has also entered into the next step on emphasizing the importance of protection of human rights, not only promotion of human rights. So they are through the process that has already been happening for the past years. So they are more confident. And human rights, of course, will involve so many stakeholders, especially the people, not only the government. The other example that I would like us to make is that under the Indonesian Chairmanship, we are going to organize what we call as the ASEAN Forum on Indo-Pacific, ASEAN-Indo Pacific Forum. So this is a series of events comprising of 5 main events. There is ASEAN Business and Investment Summit, ASEAN Infrastructure Summit, ASEAN Youth Dialogue on Digital Technology, ASEAN Initiative on Creative Industries, Creative Economy, and so on and so forth. So we also have under this Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, Women and Peace, for example, because we've been developing this, discussing this with all of the ASEAN member states, and we finally came into a conclusion that the role of women is very crucial and also determinant in promoting peace rather than men.
Ambassador, there is this theory which says that instead of calling this region Asia-Pacific and now calling it Indo-Pacific, it is to create a divide and drift between for China and India. What's your take on that?
Well, the concept of Indo-Pacific was introduced before by the US with a free and open Indo-Pacific. And I think, well, there are so many discussions that this perhaps also containment. So that was the reason why that ASEAN must not choose other Belt and Road Initiative or free and open Indo-Pacific. We must not choose. So then we came out with our own strategy. We call it Outlook. ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. It was developed by Indonesia during the Singapore Chairmanship. Then finally it was endorsed by the ASEAN leaders under the Chairmanship of Thailand after Singapore. And that is now the main strategy of ASEAN in looking at the Indo-Pacific. So what does it mean? We would like to maintain dialogue. We would like to maintain conversation and partnership on issues which is not politically sensitive. So with having a lot of meetings and conversation, we hope that this will diffuse tensions. Tension will only raise when, like the case of Ukraine, then, for example, there were negotiations after negotiation, and then negotiations stopped, and then of course weapons to the top. So we don't want that to happen. So we would like to maintain the diplomat to the top, and we are now with this ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum, for example, and that is a concrete implementation of the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. So let's talk about issues that all of us consider as priority issues. What are energy transition, digital economy, resilience to address possible pandemic, climate change. So I think those are issues that already beyond political division in the Indo-Pacific. So this is an ASEAN-led initiative. This is an ASEAN-led outlook, and I think it was welcomed by all of the dialogue partners. And they are, like the European Union, they said that, we have similar strategy toward the Indo-Pacific. Let's synchronize that. The US is also talking about the same things. Japan, Korea, hopefully India as well, are talking about the same thing. So how we will be able to fill in this outlook through concrete activities, dialogue, meetings. So then more meetings we have, then I think in the margins of that particular meeting, they could also address their own respective different issues. So that is in a nutshell of what is outlook, ASEAN Outlook of the Indo-Pacific.
Ambassador, all work and no play makes all of us very dull. ASEAN is a very dynamic, beautiful region. And if I were to ask you, how would you like to draw attention of the international community towards your own country and rest of the members? Could you say one thing about maybe all the countries, what you would like the world at large to come to ASEAN for or remember ASEAN?
No, look, there are a lot of more and more requests from many external partners, many different countries from many different regions to enter into cooperation and partnership in ASEAN. Now, take for example, like now UK is becoming the dialogue partners of ASEAN. They have their own separate ambassadors.
Mm-hmm.
Countries like Norway, they have their own ambassador from ASEAN, and also here. So they are Norway's sectoral partners. Switzerland is sectoral partners. So more and more sectoral partners who are very keen to engage with ASEAN, Indo-Pacific, and more engagement with ASEAN, meaning that they recognize the role of ASEAN. They see that to engage on the issue of Indo-Pacific, the first door for them is So that is the situation. So in other words, more and more countries would like to engage with ASEAN, and they want to become a partner of ASEAN.
Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing so much knowledge, so much brightness that looks ahead of your presidency as ASEAN. We look forward to engaging you as we go along. We have started a special section on Indonesia-ASEAN in diplomacy, and we look forward to engaging with everything that Indonesia is doing. Thank you very much.
I'll send you some materials about the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum. I think this is also a good promotion for the private sectors in Singapore.
Yes.
Or in any countries that you are having your presence.
Yes.
To tell the business community that the big events or important events going to take place in Indonesia under the chairmanship, within the context of ASEAN, under the Indonesian chairmanship.
Whenever you are ready, I'm ready to ride pillion with you. Give my regards to Ibu. How's Ibu?
I will, certainly. Thank you, Nomita.
Thank you so much, sir. Terima kasih, sir. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.